What are your thoughts on the Tea Party movement, and are there any Democrats who you think are part of it?
Well, yeah, first of all, I saw a survey the other day that said that the Tea Party, the people who identified with the Tea Party in America, grassroots people, if there was no Tea Party candidate on the ballot, 20% of them said they'd vote for Democrats. The grassroots Tea Party impulse is basically positive. What they're saying is America really doesn't work for ordinary people. And the people that caused the economic crisis, big banks, they're in good shape, and we're not. The government helps the big guys, doesn't help the little guys, and everybody works for the government. They're in good shape. They at least have a job, they got health care, they can make their mortgage payment, and we're not. And we want an America that works for ordinary people again. And we want to correct the abuses of big business and big government. That's the purest impulse. That's a healthy thing, because America needs to reform a lot of its systems now. Now, the surveys, however, all the reports that have shown that the major financial backers of the Tea Party are basically wealthy people who are very far to the right, and they hope by making it a crusade against government, they can make the world free for their big companies to run American life and life beyond our borders. So I think that many of the things these Tea Party candidates have advocated would actually would have the reverse impact that they advocate.
Are the Democrats underestimating the Tea Party movement?
I don't know. I think it would be a mistake. I think what we should say is those Tea Partiers, 20% of them, by the way, say they'd vote for Democrats if there were no Tea Party candidates on the ballot. Those, in their purest form, the Tea Partiers are saying, I've been let down by big business and big government. I've been let down because the big banks were bailed out, but nobody helped me. And the government that bailed them out, they're doing fine. They all have a job, make their mortgage payments, have health care, send their kids to college. I want reform in both. But the funders of the Tea Party movement tend to be pretty far-right extremists who want, their goal is to destroy the power of government to mediate the power of corporations. And I don't really think that is a sustainable position. My advice for the Democrats is don't play games. Make this about the American people. Tell them what we need to do and what you would do about it, and ask them if they really think you're more likely to do it than your opponent. I think we should just play it straight.
We begin tonight with the great unveiling. House Republicans held their big Take Your Jacket Off photo op today to present their agenda for this election year. In terms of the reception, it was a bit of a flop. Not in terms of the photo op. The photo op looks awesome, right? I mean, look at these guys. The blue shirts. It's amazing. No problem there. But the reception that it received, that greeted it upon arrival, was blunt and not positive. Their big election year pledge was called Drek and Pablum and full of glaring contradictions. Also, milquetoast. And those are just some of the things that were said about it from people on the right. Those terms were from the most popular, heavily trafficked right-wing blog, Red State, also from the Club for Growth. But for all the criticism on the right, if you are in the business of trying to figure out what might happen if Republicans win the elections this year, the most important thing to note is that this pledge that they have released is of very little help for mapping out the impact on the country if all these Republicans running for office right now do get elected. We see that with the Republican proposals to privatize Social Security, for example, which we talked about at the end of last night's show. And boy, did we get a lot of response to that. If you look at what their individual candidates are pledging right now, even if it's not what is in the official party pledge, the individual candidates say they would like to privatize Social Security, to hand Social Security over to Wall Street. That's what the top-tier Republican candidates running this year are promising to do, even if the party doesn't want to put it in their brand new photo op brochure manifesto. But if you're willing to not just follow the photo op brochure manifesto and instead follow what it is their candidates are promising to do as they are running for office this year, it's not just privatizing Social Security. For all of this brochure's florid language about patriotism and America keeping its promises, what their candidates are running on is a platform of privatizing everything. Right now, if you are over 65, you get public health insurance in this country. It's called Medicare. It works very well. If you want to find out how well it works, tell an audience of people who are on Medicare that you would like to take their Medicare away from them. See how they react. See what happens. I highly suggest you bring some sort of riot shield with you. Also, if you are a veteran in this country, you don't just have public health insurance like Medicare recipients do. If you are a veteran in this country, you have publicly provided health care. The same way it's publicly provided care in England, for example. Veterans have nationalized health care in this country. For all the scariness of that term, that's what we do for veterans. And that's what we have done for veterans for generations as a way of making sure that we keep our promise to the people who fight for this country. We take a national responsibility for them getting health care. We fulfill that responsibility through the VA health system, a nationalized system. And no, veterans care is not perfect, but tell this nation's veterans that you want to get rid of VA and see what they tell you. The University of Michigan surveys Americans on their satisfaction with various healthcare systems. They find routinely that veterans rate their experience with VA care above the rest of the U.S. health system. The 2008 survey found that 85% of veterans were satisfied with their VA care, compared with 77% of people treated in private hospitals. And that's fairly typical. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine compared veterans' health care to Medicare, which itself is highly regarded. The New England Journal of Medicine study found that on 11 measures of quality, veterans' facilities proved to be significantly better than Medicare. The National Committee for Quality Assurance ranks healthcare plans. Who do they rank number one? They rank number one as the VA. Like Social Security, like Medicare, you want to find out whether or not VA care works? Go tell the nation's veterans that you want to take the VA away. Go talk to the veterans organizations. See what they think of privatizing veterans care and ending the VA.
There's not a single veterans group in America from any side of the political spectrum that would support the privatization of VA healthcare.
Paul Rykoff from Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America speaking last night on The Ed Show here on MSNBC. Despite what the Republican Party is advertising as its "we love mom, we love apple pie, there's nothing to disagree with here" agenda, here's what their candidates are actually running on. And let's prove it. Here's Colorado Republican Senate candidate Ken Buck.
Would a Veterans Administration hospital that is run by the private sector be better run than by the public sector? In my view, yes.
Here's Nevada Republican Senate candidate Sharon Engel being asked if VA medical care should be expanded to cover things that it doesn't cover now.
No, not if you're working toward a privatized system.
And in an interview with the New York Times last week, Delaware Republican candidate Christine O'Donnell said one of her priorities, if she's elected to the Senate, would be to, quote, create health care vouchers for veterans. Vouchers. So instead of the VA, you can buy private care, veterans. Good luck. Here's the other secret about the agenda of Republican candidates that they're really not interested in advertising nationally this year. It's not just the people who are running right now, the Republicans who are running to join a Congress that they don't already participate in. The Republicans who are in Congress now, who are already there, who are in the minority because they lost seats in the last two elections and therefore can't get what they want by majority rules. Republicans who are already in Congress also want to privatize the VA. You'll recall that lots of Republicans said they were voting against Don't Ask, Don't Tell this past week because they wanted to get their amendments into the defense bill. Didn't have anything to do with the gays. They just wanted to get their own amendments in. Whether or not you believe that bullpucky rationale, what were these amendments that they wanted to get into the defense bill? Well, here's one from Oklahoma Republican James Inhofe. He wants a 5-year pilot program to study privatized health care for veterans. Republican Congressman Zach Wamp of C Street fame. You'll remember him from the C Street scandal. Remember him, Zach Wamp? He said this back in 2008, quote, the VA should look at new solutions to health care, like using the private sector without privatizing the system. You know, privatize it without privatizing it. Personalize it, maybe. Republican Senator Richard Burr said lawmakers should focus on boosting spending on private sector health care services for veterans. The reason Congressman Wamp and Senator Burr were even asked about privatizing health care for veterans is that the last time a Republican ran for president, in 2008, the reason John McCain got a D as in dog rating from Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, is that one of John McCain's planks for running for president was that he wanted, like Christine O'Donnell, a voucher system to privatize the VA.
My administration will create a Veterans Care Access Card to be used by veterans with illness or injury incurred during their military service and by those with low incomes.
John McCain, legitimate war hero with his incredible military experience, his gravitas on military issues. There is a reason that troops serving abroad donated 6 times as much money to Barack Obama as they did to John McCain in the past election. John McCain, like many Republicans, has on his agenda to get rid of the VA, to privatize the VA. Is there something wrong with VA care? Not really, not when you compare it to the rest of health care in this country. Veterans like it. This is true about them wanting to privatize veterans care and Social Security and Medicare. It is true that this is about policy. And sometimes in elections, it is easier to cover the wacky factor of each individual candidate running in each individual race. Sometimes it's easier to talk about this as personalities rather than policy. When Republicans want to talk about what they themselves are proposing for governing the country, they obviously want to stay very far away from all of this stuff. But this really is it. This is what they're bringing to the table. Joe Biden says, don't compare us to the almighty, compare us to the alternative. This is the alternative. All of their supposed free market ideology, which they're happy to talk about in the abstract with all the florid language that you'll find in their pledge that they released today in their shirt sleeves photo op, all of their free market ideology that they are so proud to brag of in the abstract, it has consequences in the specific. And specifically what they want to do is take apart Social Security and Medicare and care for veterans, which is all nationalized to a certain degree and which all works. And it's all stuff that people really depend on this country. It's really all working pretty okay. And they are running to dismantle it. The Republicans do not put that sort of thing in their pledge. But this is what their candidates are really running on.
Well, former President Bill Clinton hitting the campaign trail a bit over the weekend, crisscrossing the Northeast, really. Something for Democrats in 3 states. Look at this.
And, of course, they got the Wrestling Federation lady in Connecticut and the witchcraft lady in Delaware. And I tell you, so far they've gathered up about everybody for this Tea Party but the Mad Hatter. And Alice in Wonderland, I'll give it to him, I think.
You know, I've been involved in politics and public life in one way or another for 4 decades. And during those 40 years, our country has voted 10 times for president. Democrats won only 3 of those times, and the man who won 2 of those elections is with us today. Tremendous progress during the 90s under a Democratic president, with a flourishing economy and our leadership for peace and security respected around the world. Just think how much more progress we could have made over the past 40 years if we'd had a Democratic president. Think about the lost opportunities of these past 7 years on the environment and the economy, on health care and civil rights, on education, foreign policy, and the Supreme Court. Imagine how far we could have come, how much we could have achieved if we had just had a Democrat in the White House. We cannot let this moment slip away. We have come too far and accomplished too much. Now the journey ahead will not be easy. Some will say we can't do it, that it's too hard, we're just not up to the task. But for as long as America has existed, it has been the American way to reject can't-do claims and to choose instead to stretch the boundaries of the possible through hard work, determination, and a pioneering spirit. This election is a turning point election. And it is critical that we all understand what our choice really is. Will we go forward together, or will we stall and slip backwards?
The choices you make in politics are like the choices you make in life. You look at the facts as best you can, and you make the best available choice.